Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, part of the highly acclaimed series of webinars that ACP, the Association of Contingency Planners, presents for both current and future members. For more information about ACP, please visit www.acp-international.com. My name is Ed Goldberg, and I serve as ACP's Education Committee Chair. My thanks to the ACP headquarters staff at ADG in Albany, and my good friend Fred Rogers at Continuity Housing for their roles as webinar experts who work behind the scenes to ensure that these webinars come off flawlessly. A big thanks to our webinar series sponsor, Continuity Housing, who can help your organization by ensuring housing for your critical personnel when you need it most. This and previous webinars are recorded, and they're made available on the ACP website. So feel free to share the link to the recordings with your peers and anyone you think who might benefit from it. You'll receive a link to the recording after the webinar via email, along with additional information on the topical content. Today marks the 13th anniversary of the events of 9/11, 2001. If you would, please join me in a moment of silence and remembrance. Thank you. We're honored today to once again have these three renowned experts as our guest speakers: George Huff, Orlando Hernandez, and Dean Larson. George is a member of ACP's Corporate Board of Directors and the DC chapter, as well as the Board of Directors of ANSI ASQ, National Accreditation Board, which assesses and accredits certification bodies. Orlando Hernandez has served as staff liaison for the NFPA 1600 Technical Committee on Emergency Management and Business Continuity, and other NFPA technical committees. Dr. and Captain Dean Larson is president of Larson Performance Consulting, specializing in providing consulting services for safety program development, emergency preparedness, and instructional development and evaluation. We have a lot of material, not a lot of time, so I've abbreviated their long and very impressive list of credentials for each panelist. There's contact information in the presentation, so if you need to follow up with them, you can. I urge you to provide the presenters with your questions and feedback. ACP plays a lead role in influencing the standards that affect how we implement contingency plans, including the fields of business continuity, disaster recovery, emergency management, and organizational preparedness in general. This advocacy is important because it serves our organizations and our members well, raising important issues for inclusion in the standards that affect us. Today, George, Orlando, and Dean will provide an overview and update on NFPA 1600 standard making activity. Good afternoon, George, Orlando, and Dean.
Thank you, Dr. Ed Goldberg. Hello, everyone. I'm George Huff. Welcome to today's educational webinar presented by the Association of Contingency Planners. Today's agenda is a call to action to ACP members. At the end of this webinar, we will ask you to provide your comments on the revisions to NFPA 1600 or the Technical Committee. We'll describe for you how to comment on the revisions during and after this webinar. When you registered for this webinar, many of you expressed your preferences about what you want to learn. As contingency planners, most of us want to learn about the revisions proposed by NFPA's Technical Committee to this standard. Some of you have specific questions, and we'll try to answer them too. Today, we'll cover 5 general topics during the afternoon. Dean Larson, Orlando Hernandez, and I will address each topic, including the main points, and we'll take your questions at the end and by email. First of all, NFPA's Technical Committee met in March this year and proposed a number of revisions to the standards, chapters, and annexes. You want to be aware of these revisions because they directly affect our profession and the organizations that might select NFPA 1600 for alignment. So the process of revision is referred to as the 2015 fall revision cycle, first draft revisions. Second of all, we'll speak to NFPA 1600 Technical Committee's organization, development, and its current organization. Third, we'll describe to you what NFPA 16 is and what it does, During the balance of today's webinar, we'll address the revisions themselves, chapter by chapter, chapters 1 through 9, and all 11 annexes of the standards. Finally, we'll summarize the topics, review how to access the standards and revisions online, and make your comments, and we'll take your questions and ask you to complete the pop-up survey. Note that it's free to download this particular standard, and we have on this slide the link to do just that. This is NFPA's standard, and this is ACP's call to action for the standard. You should be aware that NFPA 1600 itself includes an acknowledgement to ACP for its ongoing assistance in standards development, and that ACP provides members' participation on the technical committee itself. The technical committee is in the process of revising NFPA 1600 and wants your constructive and critical comments on them. This graphic shows that the committee has reached the public input stage, and earlier this month posted the first draft revisions for public comment. The comment period remains open online until November the 14th, and the technical committee will meet again for the second revision cycle in March of next year. This graphic shows a rough developmental timeline of the technical committee and the standard itself. The actual origin of the standard was a NFPA 99 Healthcare Technical Committee, and this technical committee itself was formed in 1991. The NFPA Standards Council established the management committee in January of that year. And since then, the standard has developed. The first document that was produced by the committee was NFPA 1600, and it was presented to the membership of NFPA in 1995 at an annual meeting in Colorado. That effort produced the 1995 edition. For the 2000 edition, the committee incorporated a total program approach for disaster management and business continuity in its revision of the document. And going forward, the committee has expanded the provisions for enhanced capabilities of disaster and emergency management and business continuity programs so that the impacts of a disaster could be mitigated while protecting life and property. The chapters were expanded over the years to provide additional material relating to these topics, and the annex material was also expanded over the years to include additional explanatory material. This timeline also shows the September 9/11 attack, the 9/11 Commission report, and the noteworthy federal legislation that resulted from these actions. The 9/11 Commission advocated the use of NFPA 1600 for the private sector. Public Law 108-458, the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004, included Title VII, the 9/11 Commission Implementation Act of 2004. Public Law 11053, the implementing recommendations of the 9/11 Commission Act of 2007, actually created the Private Sector Preparedness Program. This is a current organization of NFPA. As you'll see, the committee is task organized to revise and improve the standard, and there are 11 task groups that have each identified scopes and leaders and members. As an aside, I'd like to mention that the American Bar Association's Committee on Disaster Response and Preparedness refers to NFPA 1600's Annex on the area of guidance for people who need access and fundamental needs, because they're most often people at disadvantage during an emergency. This year, FEMA has announced a change to the list of adopted standards that form the foundation of the Private Sector Preparedness Program. The list now includes 3 standards: ASIS SPC 1 of 2009, the Organizational Resilience Standard, and of course NFPA 1600 and ISO 22301 business continuity management systems requirements. Let's briefly review the organization and content of this standard. NFPA 1600 consists of 2 parts. As I mentioned before, annexes and chapters. will note that chapters 1 through 9 comprise only 5.5 pages, so it's straightforward language. Chapters 1 through 3 are the administration and references and definitions sections. Chapter 4 through 9 are the requirement specifications, and the annexes are non-mandatory guidance. So you can see that NFPA 1600 consists primarily of requirements and guidance. And we as contingency planners need to rely on both the requirements and the guidance to prepare organizations that will select NFPA 1600 as their benchmarks. And many do. Chapters 1 through 3 are administration and reference publications and definitions. There are 7 revisions that are proposed this year to these 3 chapters, and I'd like to go over those with you. First, the term impact throughout the document is changed to the plural impacts, except where the term is used with respect to BIA, business impact analysis. The purpose of this standard is revised to emphasize planning, implementation, assessment, and maintenance of programs. This is the purpose section, and you can see underlined the language that revises that section. The application of the standard has been simplified, and you can see the language at section 1.3 for that simplification. A new definition is added this year, and that is crisis. As you can see, a crisis is an issue, event, or series of events that severely impacts or has the potential to impact severely an entity's operations, reputation, market share, ability to do business, or relationship with key stakeholders. In the next section on disaster and emergency management, we've included a new one noun, the word information. And 2 more definitions are also added this year. As you can see, access and fundamental needs. I think that's a definite improvement. And also supply chain is added, and I'll mention that a new ISO standard is forthcoming or emerging in the area of supply chain. This is an important improvement. Program management is chapter 4. The technical committee is recommending 7 revisions. Program management. As you can see, section 452 includes the word "and document," and that's the single proposal with respect to chapter 4. I'll turn now over to Dean Larson. Dean?
Thank you, George. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We'll talk about the 2 chapters here. I'll cover chapters 5, which is planning, and chapter 6. I remind you that the whole standard is organized in a plan, do, check, act format. Next slide, please.
Hey, Dean, while you're pausing for 1 second, it's Ed. I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, submit them in the control panel. There's a space for that. Thank you.
We're adding some, back up 1, please, George. One of the things that we're doing some editorial changes here, moving some words around, reputation in 5.1.5, and you see we talk about severity of occurrence over time. There is also some editorial changes in the next section, and one of the things that pointed out, as George mentioned, we had a task group on supply chain operations, so you'll see mentions of supply chain operations, the proposed changes, and this is on this slide. Next slide, please. One of the things we also have been focusing is on security of information. which reflects our partnership with ISO 22301 and the Technical Committee 223 of ISO, where they're talking about security. And so one of the things we've done in terms of making sure that we have good partnership is we're reflecting this standard, some of the things that ISO is doing and other national standards operations. So you see we're adding in security of information. Next slide. Next slide, please. This is a design of the business impact analysis, and with the business impact analysis, we've identified, backup slide please, George. You see the business impact analysis is again a change here, and you'll see several of these changes in chapter 5 and 6 where we've done more clarification and expanded what we meant by these in previous chapters. In the previous editions, we've had shorter versions like the business impact analysis, and in this one we've had the specific 6 components that we say should be part of your business impact analysis. Next slide, please. Same thing here, we're expanding with new emphasis, and this whole section with the talked about in 5.3.2, again, we're looking at what we've done in previous editions. As we continue to improve the standard, we're expanding it and we're clarifying. Next slide. Here we've taken and we've done some emphasis on supply chain and clarification with business impact analysis, more emphasis on RTOs and RPOs. You'll see the last item, 5.3.6, identify critical supply chains. That was an important topic that we agreed on early on in the 2016 revision cycle that we would focus on. Next slide. Going into Chapter 6, implementation, and you see this is the different parts of Chapter 6. When we did the 2013 edition, we moved all the planning, most of the planning in Chapter 5, Chapter 6, we did the implementation, including writing plans. Go ahead. Next slide, please. One of the things that you notice here in the item number 3, we've introduced the social media. We feel strongly that social media has to be an integral part of your program. It's one of those things that's a part of our society, and it either is used as a tool or it becomes a weapon. And so again, we put a task group together on social media, and we're inserting that in various places throughout the body of the standard in the annexes. Next slide, please. Here what we've done is greater specifics on what continuity plans should include, and here's a specific, again, we've expanded that from the 2013 edition. Next slide, please. There's a specific 15 different items that we believe should be part of the continuity plans. One bit of note, when you read in 1600, some people may say you've specified a number of plans. We say in 1600 those plans can be all part of one large document, can be combinations of multiple plans or multiple documents or separate plans depending on the application. But you can see these 15 items. That's a great deal more information we had the last version. Next item, please. We specify and emphasize the importance of RTO and RPO, and also again another a mention of the supply chain disruption. That's part of our emphasis in this edition. Next slide, please. And the recovery plans, we talked about that. Again, these are changes. You see 6.9.2.1. We talked about general what a recovery plan is and what it should provide for. And the next slide, please. Next slide, please. And you can see here, as we did with the continuity plans, we have had a great deal more emphasis on recovery plans. Next, I'll turn this over to Orlando Hernandez.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. I'm going to go over Chapter 7 and 8 and 9 chapters. In Chapter 7, it's the training education chapter for NFPA 1600. And with this chapter, I mean, although the committee did not make any changes in Chapter 7, it's very important that the organizations that are not familiar with the incident management system, that they should coordinate meetings with their local jurisdictions so that in case of emergency, the organization can become an asset to the responding departments and the local jurisdiction, so that they can provide valuable information about their facility, their company, that may be important for them to understand and know if there is a particular fire or a special hazard in areas where they have special records kept or certain systems that they may need to address, handle specially. That's very important for the responders to know that kind of information, and also for the organizations to understand how to train and plan for those kind of events, so that it minimizes the disruptions that the organization has to go through after a disaster, whether it's a technological event at the facility, or it may be some kind of issues with the electrical and power to the facility. So it's kind of information important that you start planning for those kind of events. You can go to the next slide, George. In Chapter 8, there was one revision, first revision that was created during the meeting, and it was kind of more of a clarification change that they did. Chapter 8 covers the exercises and testing for the organization's program, and what the change was that they made some clarification is they looked at, George, you can go to the next slide. What they did is they added, the change was on item number 8 of the list on section 8.3. You'll notice it says 8, and there's an asterisk, improve coordination among internal and external teams, organizations, and entities. That is the only change that the committee made to that chapter. And so you'll notice, if you're not familiar with the use of NFPA documents, when you have a section number and then there's an asterisk, that denotes that there's some more information in the annex. So you're able to go to the annex and find out the other helpful information that the committee has provided, so that it will help you understand and use the document better. Next slide, please. On this slide, we're going through is the maintenance and improvement chapter, which is vital to the overall health and success of an entity, just to make sure that you continue to review your plans, make improvements, and see what areas are that a organization's plans may need to be improved, so that it's a plan that covers all organizations and all different operations within that organization. Next slide. And the committee made a change to the section 9.13. They added critical suppliers to the list. As you know, denoted on number 9, with an underlying critical, it's because there was increased focus and dependence on suppliers. We've had some discussions in 1600 meetings, and also in some of the meetings I attended for ISO 223, with the tsunami and pending earthquakes and nuclear disaster in Japan, that how some of those suppliers from overseas were affecting some of the products that were developed here in the States. So the committee decided they had a task group, and they started to meet and discuss that. So they decided that they needed to look at and make sure critical suppliers were included with the program in Chapter 9, Program Management and Improvement. Okay. Next slide, please. The next slide talks about the different annexes. You'll see A through J. In the 13 edition, they added several new chapters in the annex, several new annexes. And what the committee did, they had task groups, and they checked, and they were all assigned different annexes, and they were reviewing the annex to make sure that the information they had was up to date. So the committee has made 10 first revisions to Annex A during the meeting, and during the second draft meeting, the committee will review the annexes to make sure that any submitted comments to any of the changes are addressed in the annex and also in the standard of the body, and to make sure that the appropriate updates are made within the annexes and the body of the standard. Next slide, please. Annex D is the Plan to Check Act cycle. And that's our diagram. There was one change made. It was a very the simple change, and you'll when you see the new model in the cycle, instead of just 4, it's going to say Chapter 4. So they just did a little bit of cleanup on this this diagram here to just include the word chapter in front of each number. So you'll read Chapter 4 or Chapter 5. So that was the one revision they made there. In Annex E, you go to the next slide, George. I want to make one mention in Annex E that the committee added the Federal Continuity Directive 1 to the crosswalks in Annex E. And with that change, when they added the Federal Continuity Directive, the committee also decided to create separate crosswalks between 1600 and the DRI professional practices and the Canadian Standard Z 1600. So what you'll see in Annex E is you're going to find 3 separate crosswalks that is going to crosswalk NFPA 1600 to this Federal Continuity Directive, DRI, and Z 1600. So you'll get separate if you want to examine those documents compared to 1600. So you're going to have a separate crosswalk for those. And what you also in Annex F, that's the management system standard. So that's going to cover what you need to do to use this standard as a management system standard. If you choose to adopt a management system standard, the committee has decided to have this document in there, this annex in there, so that you're able to use it as a management system standard. Next. Those are some of the things that we talked about today. Talks about the development and the origin of NFPA 1600 and what 1600 does. And we reviewed also the chapter by chapter, some of the changes and the different annexes that we have in 1600. We also going to go over the fall revision cycle dates. Next slide, please. And one of the things I want to bring up is that this is just the first draft. There's going to be a second draft meeting, as George said it earlier. It's going to be held in March 2015. So, but right now the document is posted on the Doc Info page, and you can retrieve that information as you look at the bottom in the gold box under the main point. The Doc Info page can be searched at www.nfpa.org/1600, and there's a tab that says Next Edition. So you can go to the Next Edition. It gives you all the information that you need on what's coming up with the new document. Next slide, please. And there's a screen print of the Doc Info page. You'll see the tab that says Next Edition. Now, what we talked about today, we just referenced a few of the first revisions and changes that were made for the document. Now, there are several more first revisions that were created to make changes to the document. And if you would like to go through there and see what other changes have been made, you can see there's a couple ways. If you look at, there's a lower red arrow on the bottom of the page. It says the first draft report. If you click on that first draft report, it will show you a copy of 1600 with the changes in it, and you'll be able to see what the document is going to look like based on the changes that were done in the first draft meeting. And if you choose to provide some comment to the committee, and maybe there's something you may disagree with or something that may have been left off that you think additional information would be very helpful for the user and for the community, you can provide a comment, and the upper red arrow on the screen, it says next edition, this standard is open for public comment. If you'll click on that link there, it will walk you through and it will help you provide a first comment. You don't have to be an NFPA member to provide a comment and or public inputs to any of the documents that NFPA produces. But if you do not have a logon, username, and password, you will need to sign up for that. There is no cost for the logon, but they just want to make sure that if there's something if they're able to get back some information to you, that they have a way of reaching you. It's generally just your name, your address, and your email. And you're able to get that logon, and then you can provide input to the document. So, but just as we mentioned earlier, if you would like a free copy, go to the next slide. Oh, back one. Okay, here if you, under the current and prior edition tab on the doc info page, you'll see two arrows. There you can access, and once you have signed up for your user logon, you can download a free PDF copy of NFPA 1600. If you'll notice on the left-hand side where the left arrow is on the left side of the screen, 1600, the 2013 edition, is also available in Spanish. So that if your company or yourself has any work in Latin America or Mexico, that it may be helpful for your folks to have the document in Spanish, well, they can download that same PDF copy of 1600 in Spanish. So that's a service that NFPA has decided that, because this is very important to NFPA and the community as far as being, preparedness, NFPA is providing these documents free of charge. So on the left-hand screen it says choose format. If you choose to have a paper copy, then there is a fee. But if you just want to download the PDF, there is no charge for the download of the PDF. And at this time, I'm going to pass it back to Ed. Thanks.
Thank you. We have quite a few questions, so I'm going to jump right into those. Great job getting some good feedback as well. What is the relationship between the annex and the body of the standard, and between the differences between 1600 and 22301? Two different questions. Let's do the first one. Yeah, the relationship between the annex and the body of the standard. Let's do that first.
This is Dean. I'll take that one. The annexes are additional information. As Orlando mentioned to you, whenever you come up in the body of the standard, you see an asterisk. You'll see a corresponding section in Annex A. That's the same section number. It's preceded by an A. So if it was section 1.1, it would be A 1.1 in Annex A. This is additional information that the committee wants you to have. And as you read this information, you might say, well, why don't we put that right in the body of the standard? Well, we want to make the body of the standard as lean as possible, because if an authority having jurisdiction would adopt the standard, then you either comply with the requirement or you give a reason why not. So this is additional information in A. The annexes B through J has additional information. We do have the one unique annex with the 2013, and you'll see it again in 16. That's the management system standard. The way that is set up, that is a non-mandatory standard, that when you read the introduction, you say it'll explain to you, you either use the standard as a management standard or you use that annex as a management system standard. You don't pick and choose from the two. It's either or for the use. Second part of that question is, what's the relationship to 22301? First of all, I'll start with that management system the management system standard annex. That's in the identical ISO format. A few years ago, ISO as a body took on standardization of the high-level management system standards. For example, ISO 9000 and 14000 have slightly different formats, which creates some problems, not the least of which is 2 sets of auditors if you are in compliance with those. And there was an attempt to standardize those. 22301 is in the new ISO 83 format. That management system standard is ISO 223. NFPA 1600 was one of the base documents when they stood up the Technical Committee 223 in 2005 when the Swedes took over as the secretariat for that technical committee. There was 5 documents of which they started the first standard. 1600 was one of those 5. NFPA has played a key role on 223, including the leadership to 22398 was the first guidance document on exercises. The difference between 22301 and 1600, 1600 is unique in the world, but it's an integrated emergency management business continuity standard. It's also unique in the sense that it's offered as a management system and a management system standard. 22301 is focused on business continuity. It's an excellent standard. It's one of the 3 standards that's available to you, as George mentioned, in the PS Prep program, the other being the ACES standard, 1600, and 22301.
Very good. Thanks, Dean. Would Chapter 8 follow HSEEP guidelines? I think those are the exercise guidelines.
That one also, yes, it will. It's not going to give the same requirements as HSEEP in terms of all the prior planning and the documentation, but the basic concepts are there. HSEEP standard, it's kind of interesting. When I was leading the development of 22398, I mentioned the first ISO standard on guidance standard on exercises. There was a demand from the Swedes and the Brits to include HSEEP, many of the HSEEP concepts in that because they consider it the gold standard of the world. But the draft are the Chapter 8 and HSEEP. There's no conflict in there. There's just not the requirement for all the pre-planning and all the other documentation. But if you do the HSEEP and you see the documentation, that was one of the main things that we emphasized in this whole 2016 edition with documentation. So those 2 are consistent.
Okay, very good. Can anyone attend and or participate in a committee meeting?
This is Orlando. Take that. All NFPA meetings are open to the public, and Jaron, what we do is on the doc info page, we will post the meeting notice, and we try to post a couple of months in advance. That gives the location of the meeting, and if you wish to choose, you can also send an email to me or Yvonne here at NFPA, Yvonne Smith, and we can just log you down as you attend the meeting. And guests can participate, or if they have any questions, they can send an email to the chair prior to the meeting, or send to me, and I'll forward it to the chair, Don Schmidt. And if we have some time, he'll recognize guests if they have some input to the meeting. Don runs a very good meeting. He tries to get as much input from everyone as possible, even if as their guests. In our last meeting, we had several guests attend, and they raised their hand, and Don recognized them, and they provided some very good input to the meeting, and that just kind of helped develop development of the standards. So NFPA always has room for guests at their meetings. We always plan for extra guests to attend. We have different chairs, and if we have some room at the table, we'll invite them up to the table. So at any time, they're welcome to any NFPA meeting. So you can use the doc info page, and that's something that NFPA has for every document they have, and it's very easy. If you have a question on fire investigation, I mean NFPA 921, you just use the address www.nfpa.org / and then you put the number of the document that you want information on, and it'll provide all the latest information on that document there.
Okay, very good. Similar logistical question. Is it in draft mode? The question was multifaceted. I'm trying to keep it short. Is it like an open comment? How can someone get to the document? Can they submit, a suggestion or a comment or whatever?
I'll take that, Ed, Orlando. Yes, right now, currently, the document is open for comment, and the comment will be based on the first revisions that were made during the first draft meeting. So if someone wants to make a comment based on one of the first revisions, they can provide input through that comment stage, and when they provide input, they'll be able to get that information to the chair and to the committee, and so that the committee will hear their concerns or their suggestions and hopefully incorporate that information into the document so that it's a better document for the users to use.
Okay, very good. I'm just getting one more question from Maud. Maud's in Tuckahoe. Let's see. What has she got? Fred is actually in the background taking the questions and sending them to me, hence the delay right here. So he's got it coming. Give me 1 second. As long as we're in a pause mode, I can save some time at the end. There's a lot of questions. That's why we're doing it this way. We're not going to get to all of them. We're, in respect of everybody's time, we're going to stop in probably 3 to 5 more minutes. But we'll get answers to the questions out to everybody who's registered, along with the link to the recording. So if your question doesn't get covered, then you'll get an answer to the question, and everybody will get to see the question and answer. Just a reminder to stick around for a moment afterwards. We're not done.
Hey, Ed, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, sure. Please.
On the presentation, you noticed that there was some dates on there. There were some the dates for public comment. The closing was open. It was posted on January 5th. The closing date for paper submissions, if you wish to submit your comments or suggestions via paper to NFPA, the deadline is October 10th, 2014. Generally, if you use the links that I showed you on the screen through the DocInfo page, the public comment closing date for online submissions is November 14th, 2014. And the reason why there's two different dates is that if someone submits it via paper submission, then NFPA staff has to rekey the entire recommendation. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer depending on the amount of comments that we get. So that's why it's a shorter deadline for the paper submissions. So we recommend and highly suggest that you do the online submission. So you have a little bit more time, but it's a lot easier. There's no chance of any maybe typo because somebody's having to rekey this. So we just want to make sure that we get your information correctly and we get that information in the hands of the committee. I appreciate it.
Okay. Sure. No, very good. So we did get to all the questions that were in the queue. What happened was Fred and I were, this is a scrolling text box, and we were both looking at the same thing. I didn't realize that I had covered them all that we have in the queue right now. There may be some that come in afterwards, and those will get answers to everybody. So first off, George, Orlando, and Dean, thank you for a great webinar, great content, really well received. We've already gotten some email on the side here and comments to that effect. Second thing, so thank you. And thanks to ADG and to Fred in the background for running this, and to Continuity Housing for sponsoring this. On that last slide, you see there's contact information for Michelle Lau there at Continuity Housing. The slide that was just before that. I'm sorry. The one that's, yeah, there it goes. Thanks. That information's there, so you need it later. If you have questions on what they offer and so forth, please feel free to contact them. They're really a good friend to all of us by paying for all this and letting us continue this series. Watch the ACP website for future webinar reminders. The recording will be there. You'll get a link for it. Don't forget afterwards. And I think there's a survey that'll pop up when you close the window today. And please fill out the survey. Tell us what kind of topics you want to have included in this series. That really drives our productions, makes it so that we hit topics that hopefully are of greater interest to you. On behalf of Continuity Housing and ACP and George and Orlando and Dean, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.